Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Quentin Q. Crisco, Samir Patel, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
No, we are not sitting here talking about a Bears victory, but I don't think it's all as bad as it's made out to be in the world of Bears fandom, despite the desires and hopes and dreams of Bears fans everywhere. The Bears could not come away with a victory against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday. I am Ron Luce, joined by Sonny Verma and Mr. Samir Patel. Unfortunately, our fearless leader, Mr. Quentin Crisco, had to attend a funeral today, so unable to join us. Guys, we talked just briefly in the kind of the pre-show here. I'm feeling okay. But before we dive too deep into football, how are you gentlemen doing? This one's a little fresher than usually after our shows, right? We're so used to noon games and having some time to dissect and breathe them. This one's a little more fresh coming live during the Sunday night football game after the primetime 3:00 game. Sonny, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I can't say I'm content because it's a game against Green Bay, and you never want to lose games against Green Bay. But being a Bears fan as long as I have, usually it doesn't come down to a last play or the game isn't as close as it was this past, 2 hours ago when that game ended. It's frustrating, but I think collectively, you and I, again, we all kind of discussed this pre-show. There's a lot of things to look forward to in the remaining couple of games. And that's nice to see when you're 13 games in on an NFL season. And as a Bears fan, there's still a lot you're looking forward to.
Most definitely. Samir, echoing a similar tune?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, that game had kind of blowout written all over it towards the end of the first half, right? You were going in at 14-3, Green Bay gets the ball back, and you're like, 21-3? This could be one of those, oh God, here we go again games. But you know what? They rallied. They made adjustments. I do have faith in Ben Johnson. Now, he had some questionable things, I think, but every coach does every single game. Nobody's perfect, and I think we'll probably go into some of that later on in the show. But man, that first half, gentlemen, was about as poorly as you could play. If for as bully ball as they were, Ron, against the Eagles, they were getting shellacked on both sides in the first half of that game. And they made some adjustments. So kudos to them. Tough environment to play. You know, the weather was, I think, seemed like it was hindering the Bears more than the Packers. It just looked to me like they were a little bit slower. But like you guys said, this was probably, and I said this in the prediction show, this is probably our toughest remaining game. I know at San Fran is another one, but this is probably the toughest remaining game on the Bears schedule. So to have it come down to the last play of the game, this team is still ahead of schedule, and we can try to find the positives in that.
1,000%. And I think I sit back and I think about this game and the kind of the collectives I think about. Everything that was bad in this game is completely fixable. Like there's nothing in this game that I look at and I go, ooh, that's going to hinder the Bears for the rest of the season, right? The defense was really poor tackling today. You can fix that. That's fundamentals. That's willingness. That's better angles. That's attention to detail, right? That's correctable. The game plan in the first half. I kind of see what Ben Johnson wanted to do. Outside, they said it on the broadcast, and they're 100% correct. Outside zone is the Bears' bread and butter. The Packers are one of the best teams in the league against outside zone. So Ben knew that. We all knew that.
Yep. They
tried to go against that. They tried more drop back pass. They tried to take advantage of their playmakers in space. I know everybody, I think it was Dan Wider on socials was, Caleb's 0 for 5 to start the game. 2 of those were drops. Loveland's was a drop. There's another drop in there as well. So these things are all correctable. Yes, it was ugly early, but good teams can come out from the opening kickoff and put together a strong first half. Great teams look in the mirror, see what they did wrong, make the adjustments, and play better in the second half. And that's what the Bears have done all year. So to your point, Samir, yeah, it did kind of feel like, oh, maybe it was going to get away from them. But then you have that important drive. You get the 2 points, always push the pile. That's a perfect example of always pushing the pile. They could have given up on that play and not gotten the 2. And we'd probably be sitting here talking about this in a very different game because it's not a one-possession game where you got a chance to tie it at the end. And they take care of business there. They started to get some of that momentum in the second half. And I think that's, and again, too, you got a chance to rewrite the script in 2 weeks. Yeah. You don't got to sit on this for 2 months. There's not that huge gap in the schedule between playing the Packers again. You can fix this. You can correct this. And that's going to be a big game at Soldier Field. And now the Bears also don't have to travel for 2 more weeks. And Green Bay wasn't a hard trip either. So the schedule kind of favors them here the rest of the way outside of the trip to the West Coast to play the 49ers, which I think is going to be interesting. Gentlemen, I wanted to get your take, though. We got some already commenters here. Of course, our friend Daniel Bear Sports Highlights. Hello, happy Sunday, everybody. And then we've got Tron here in the comments. It was at the game. It says, despite the loss, it was an extremely fun game and a lot of Bears fans in the crowd.
It's great.
This was a good football game. This is exactly how I expected this game to go. It was going to be close. It was going to be competitive. And it's also nice when you look at this and say, well, this Packers team isn't like 4-8. Right? And they come out with a win, and then we're really pissed off because then they play down the competition. This team was a half a game behind you in the standings. This football game lived up to that potential. Are you guys? What is something maybe though from this game? We got to give a little bit of negativity. Got to give it for the people because I know people are coming to listen to this and looking for some of that steam. What is one thing from this game that you kind of pissed you off a little bit? Sonny, starting with you here, just what is it?
The first 30 minutes. We looked lifeless out there. That was one of the worst halves that we've had all season long. And, I texted you and Q. It looked like our players were slipping and sliding everywhere, not able to get good grips, whereas, Green Bay was. And, Ben Johnson was offered the opportunity to use an excuse, but he didn't. He's like, no, we've been practicing in the same sort of weather as well. So to me, it just looked like coming out of the gates, Green Bay was pumped for this game. They were ready for this game. They were game planned for this game. Whereas us, it took us until getting the ball back after a 4-and-out from Green Bay after halftime before things seemed to start to click.
Definitely. Samir, is it the same for you? Or is there anything else that you kind of pick out in this one?
I thought Ben was a little too cute in the first half, especially after that CJ pick that got us, I think, right on the other side of midfield. We didn't run the ball, I think, at all. Got a penalty out of that too. It's like, man, you're on the other side. That's like 4-down territory, basically, where we're at, right? And you're a running team. This is your style. Go get some first downs, man. Get at least in field goal range, right? To have to punt on your side of the field is super demoralizing, and that disgusted me. On the defensive side, I didn't think Dennis Allen had a great game plan. Now, that late scratch by Kyler Gordon may have thrown things off for him. And we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I thought playing that kind of blitzing never works. And we talked about that as the part of the keys to victory. Jordan Love ate us up on those blitzes, but he dialed them up time and time again. And he's just doing his Jordan fadeaways. And you're like, oh, there's just no way. And there is a way. And so I thought Dennis Allen's game plan wasn't very sound either. So the coaching on both halves, and obviously Caleb missed some throws, but that's just who Caleb is. He'll miss some throws and things like that. But I don't know. That I think the coaching was really the thing that bothered me in the first half.
Definitely. I think to build off to your point, Samir, what I was it wasn't even necessarily the abandonment of the run game early that bothered me. It just felt like they got away from their identity.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson's run offense is very tight ends in motion, tight ends at the point of attack, utilizing kind of those, the tosses, giving running backs time to read and react. It was very kind of vanilla, and that didn't feel like true Ben Johnson football. And I think that's where my kind of disdain for that first bit was kind of rough. And it really came down to, in this game, the Bears just got out explosive played.
Yeah.
It really was what it was. The teams were, the Bears were able to get that interception that was huge early on. It stalled that incredibly long drive the Packers had to begin the game. And then instead of, being able to take advantage and start to score points, right? You get the big touchdown to Melton before the half. Watson having his big play. We talked about it in the preview show, Samir, that Christian Watson was going to get his, and he did. Right?
Oh,
that
boy,
was
did.
kind of expected. Jaden Reed was a huge returner for the Packers in this one, and they got some big plays out of him. And I think to that one where Reed was in the slot on the left side of the field, kind of everybody uses different terminology, kind of that Y receiver on the inside, and has the inside release on CJ Gardner-Johnson and then just outburns him to that corner. I think that's where it's those instances where I look and I go, that's where they missed Kyler Gordon. I don't know if there's no so much in the run game because CJ Gardner-Johnson was all over the place in the run game today. So I wasn't really upset with that part of his performance. It was more so just Kyler Gordon's an elite coverage guy in the nickel, and they missed that. And it sucks that it was literally in warmups. It wasn't even something they could necessarily prepare for. And I think that it might have thrown off DA's game plan a little bit. I really do think there's something to that. Now, again, we can't sit here and make excuses because as Nelly here in the comments says, the poor tackling, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, way too many opportunities. They could have kept Jacobs, short of a first down. Instead, he breaks it off for a 20-yard run, and that sets up the late touchdown. The little things like that that need to be corrected, and I'm sure will be corrected. But I think that for me, that's the type of stuff. And really, I think you guys are right. It just seems like the Bears weren't as gassed up as the Packers were for this game. I don't know if that's the environment, right? Obviously, the Packers are going to thrive at home at Lambeau and the crowd noise and everything like that. But they just didn't have the same juice, I think, that we've become accustomed to with a Ben Johnson coach team. Do you guys think the longer week of preparation could have done that? Do you think that just it's that point in the year, it's the dog days of December, and this one snuck up on him a little bit? Kind of what do you think might have caused that? Because I agree. Lifeless was a great way to put it, Sonny, when you texted Q and I earlier, of just they looked like they weren't ready to play football, and that is not what this team has looked like in this stretch of winning here over the last 9+ games.
I mean, I think it's easy to say, that it is Ben Johnson's first Green Bay Packers game. And all week long, people were talking about that little shot that he took towards the Green Bay's head coach, in his introductory press conference. And, a lot of these players are new. Caleb obviously had that. He won the last time he played at Lambeau. And there's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of, emotion that comes into this game. But there's a lot of new players on this Bears team as well. Gardner Johnson, he's never really participated in this rivalry, and the excuses are there. But quite honestly, Ron, from what I just saw today, I think it was just a bad half. And again, that's just going to happen. It's just unfortunate, and it leaves a bad taste in our mouth that it happened to happen against the Green Bay Packers. If you play like this and you have a bad half against the Eagles, that's one thing. I think you can kind of shrug it off, saying, "Hey, the Eagles are pretty good." You're going to have some stretches where you don't play well. I think it just happened to us this week. And the game itself, we're also hyped about it. It was amplified because it's the best rivalry in the NFL. And it was just a bad time to have a bad half.
Definitely. It really did feel that way. Samir, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think, the weeks leading up to this game, the Bears were always kind of the underdog, the slept on team, right? Like, hey, this should be a win. Like the Eagles, I think, should have taken the Bears more seriously than they did. I think they thought, we're the Eagles. We just lost a game. We're at home. We're going to win. We weren't sneaking up on anybody this week, right? They're the number 1 seed. They're going into Green Bay, a place where they won last year, where a lot of those same Packer players were there watching the Bears celebrate on their field. The shots that Ben Johnson took during the offseason, there was some juice there. You could tell it meant more to those Packer players, right? And I think the Bears kind of came in not understanding what it means to have the target on your back this time and coming out with that kind of intensity and matching it. Man, hats off to the Packers defensive coordinator, Jeff Hatley, in the first half. any one of those trick plays, the reverses, the wide receiver screens, just blown up almost immediately, right? They were ready to play this game. And kudos to the Bears for making adjustments and really getting back into it in the second half. But they were outfoxed in that first half and out hustled, sadly.
Definitely. I think back to the screen to DJ Moore. Might have been a little pass interference, but
I thought so too.
He was a little early, but still a hell of a play, right? To break on the ball, come downhill like that, and make a big play and break up what could have been a lucrative play. Because we saw it a little bit later in the second half, right? The screen to Luther Burden, which ended up setting up the Loveland touchdown. They started to get a little bit more of the screen game and things like that going. Loved the screen to DeAndre Swift with the little underhand throw from Caleb as well. I think the play design on that was fantastic because it builds off, again, making the different things look the same, as Ben Johnson has said before. The reverse action, literally the play action of that side, and almost like, we're going to do it. And I'm just like, we're just kidding. We're just dumping it right back to him. He's just going to keep the ball. Gentlemen, I have one more thing I want to ask you guys about before we get to our normal segments of the show. The last play. I've seen a lot of controversy already. I've already had discussions with a number of people, relatives, friends, things like that about that last play. And everybody goes, well, DJ Moore was wide open. For starters, before we even get to that piece of it, that was effectively the play that they scored on against Philly. It was the exact same play. It was the exact same play. It was play action left. Swift leaks out into the flat. You got Komet coming on the backside on the post, and you got an under route underneath that. If there is an defender, you're hoping that he bites up and they're able to hit that. Didn't work. What say you on that play? Because football fans have this interesting fascination, and again, it's something that in my younger days I was guilty of, and as I've gotten older and been a little closer to the game of football, I've learned to be able to take a step back. It's very easy to identify one play and say that's the play that lost them the game, at least for the common football fan, which is not the case, right? You could probably point to 15 different plays in that game that if they go a different direction on either side of the football, the outcome is different. But of course, everybody's going to talk about the last play because it's the most fresh. It's the what have you done for me lately? Was it a wise play call by Ben Johnson in your opinions? Do you think, do you wish that Caleb would have hit DJ Moore in that situation? Do you wish they would have run the football, just try to get the first down, take a timeout, and then scheme something up to get into the end zone? I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on that last play, because I know it's generated a lot of buzz, and I'm sure people are going to be coming here to want to talk about that play as well. Samir, going to give you the floor this time. Thoughts and opinions?
Yeah. So my initial thought was, why didn't you just run it? You have 2 timeouts. You get the first down. You are first and, maybe I forget where they were exactly, but you're there, right? And you take the timeout. You got 1 left. You still have the middle of the field because you still have the 1 timeout left. Now you got 4 downs. Now, I'm granted getting that for 1 yard isn't a given, but how they've been running, both Swift and Monangai were averaging over 4 yards a carry. Monangai was popping, right? I know he didn't get it on 3rd and 1, but that's why you get 2 shots at it, get the 4th and 1. I went back and watched that play several times. I don't think DJ Moore was a realistic option because by the time Caleb was kind of in no man's land, right? He was late on the Komet throw because Komet was open, but he was too early for DJ Moore. So he would have had to bypass Komet entirely in order to get Moore there because he was already loading up when DJ Moore popped free. So Ben schemed it right. He was open. If Caleb throws a better ball, that's a touchdown. So I can't get too mad at the play call. And maybe that's just the safe Eberflus in me, which, we got to get rid of those demons. But I think I would have just run it, taken my chances with 4 more plays.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I would have run the ball if I was the head coach, but I value Ben Johnson, and I got excited about hiring Ben Johnson because he makes a call like he did at the end of that game. Ron, I'm glad you caught that too. You're right. That's the exact same play that they scored on with the Eagles. And as Samir said, if the throw is where it's supposed to be, that's a touchdown. All you ask is, and let's be honest, right? It feels bad because the throw was intercepted. But more often than not this year, Caleb has made the pass when you needed it at the end of the game. Didn't work out in our favor this time. Had it, all of a sudden you're talking about another brilliant Ben Johnson call. It's one of those where I'm conservative by nature. And so, yeah, I would have taken the 1 yard, and Samir already did a fantastic job, explaining why. You still have the timeout. You still have the middle of the field. But I feel like the reason you hire a guy like Ben Johnson is that he does have thoughts and ideas like this. If that play was ultimately really poorly executed, maybe I'd have more reservations, but I think everybody was supposed to be where they were supposed to be. And so Caleb just didn't make the right throw. Or he made the right throw, it was too short. Had it been executed, we're all potentially celebrating after a 2-point conversion, but it didn't execute, but it's executed in the past. And in moving forward, I like Ben Johnson's aggressiveness because you know what? It's going to happen again. There's going to be 20 seconds left, and all of a sudden the defensive coordinator of the opposition is going to have to keep that in mind, that Ben Johnson may not just run it up the middle to get a safe 1 yard. He's going to make plays like this, little trick plays like that. And that's going to keep that defensive coordinator guessing. And again, that's why Ben Johnson is who he is.
100%. I'm gonna tickle the other side of the agreement here. I think it was the right play call, and you guys have laid it out incredibly well. Komet was open. The play was there. It's clearly a play they've trusted. A lot of people, we obviously don't know. So this is part of the unknown, right? That I think as football fans have to remember. We don't know every little detail of the X's and O's there. Because DJ Moore pops open at the end. Well, DJ's probably not the first read. In fact, he's probably the third read. It's either Swift to Komet or it's Komet to Swift. And Caleb made a decision. He pulled the trigger. The throw wasn't there. It's going to happen. That's okay. You guys put it perfectly. I think as well, Ben, I think, was having a little bit of demons, especially on the inside, because we talked about it on the preview show, Samir, about with no Wyatt on the inside for their D line, that's going to be a place. Kudos to Hatley for how they schemed up, really clogging up the middle. And obviously in the second half, Ben did a great job of kind of readjusting, and they were able to make the run game more effective. But the one mismatch that I continually see in my head, that I continually saw throughout the game, was them scheming it up to have Micah Parsons rush on Jonah Jackson, who they knew could not keep up with Micah Parsons and his speed. That's brilliant. That's identifying the matchup on the offensive line that you want most. And yes, if Jonah Jackson gets his paws on you, it's all over. Your good is gone. But if you can beat him to his edge, and especially Q and I talk about this all the time on the O-line shows, he really struggles with guys that cross his face. And Micah Parsons feasted in that category, especially in the first half. So I think there's some of the respect almost for how the Green Bay Packers schemed up defensively to find the matchups against the Bears offensive line that they wanted to take advantage of. Because when you look at the line as a unit, it's a great unit. When you look at them individually, it is a very interesting cast of characters when you really break it down. You've got a really small center. You've got a humongous, literal human bear at your right guard and your right tackle positions. Joe Thuney is a little undersized, despite being an incredible technician and one of the best offensive linemen in the game. And then you've got a rookie, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kid from Boston College and Ozzie Trapilla at left tackle. It is kind of a funny dynamic of an offensive line. I think the play call was there. And again, I'm more sour about this if the Packers are 4-8 coming into this game and the Bears are 9-3. I'm more sour about it if it's in Soldier Field. I'm more sour about it if it's not a one-possession game late. And again, I'm more sour about it if these are not things that aren't correctable. They're all correctable. And I'll be completely honest, and this is probably something that people aren't going to want to hear, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sometimes these teams that are go on heaters like the Bears have, I mean, they won, 9 in a row? These are the type of games you almost need to have sometimes, because they ground you, and they force you to improve, and they force you to go back to the drawing board. When everything's green and kosher, It's real easy just to keep doing the same things and not try to improve and not try to evolve. When you lose and you get your ass kicked a little bit, forces you to look in the mirror. And I think for the long-term vision of this 2025 Bears team, I think that is what they needed. And that's going to be a little bit of a fire now when they come to your own place in 2 weeks. And I hope they kind of remember that and take that energy and channel it. I know Ben Johnson's going to preach that in that locker room when it's all said and done. Another comment here really quick from, I think it's Neil Libner. When I read it the first time, it looked like Nelly. So I'm sorry. DJ had 3 targets, 1 catch for -4 yards. Hasn't had that effort this season. DJ wasn't in the plan for the play. They missed Rome today. He hopes it helps make Luther Burden become a bigger part. I don't know if they really did miss Rome all that much. I don't think that would have made as huge of a difference in this game as people think. Maybe on some of the higher Caleb throws, because that's kind of what Rome does, is, with the high point of the football. But Colston Loveland contributed and looked really good outside of his 1 drop today. He was 4 or 5 on, catches and targets. I think Luther Burden looked great today in how they used him. Cole Kmet was a more active part of the offense, which I really enjoyed to see. And hell, Devin Duvernay made a great catch late in this game. Like, we got to see the Devin Duvernay finally got to do something on offense. I agree. I think DJ Moore, you want him to have more of an impact, but when you watch the tape, the all 22, DJ's asked to do a lot in the blocking scheme of this team. Probably more than any other receiver. Luther doesn't get asked to do that much. Maybe the only guy I think that is asked to do more is Olamide Zacchaeus and maybe Rome by a small margin. So sometimes, DJ could be playing hurt. Who knows? We don't know. We don't know all of the little its and bits. But I think it's really, really the last play was fascinating. So I wanted to hear from you guys on that one. But guys, let's get into this, shall we? And get to our normal segments.
The baddest man.
I'm sure we can find at least one guy that we can consider the baddest man for the Bears. Despite a loss, it wasn't a blowout. They didn't get their ass beat. Gentlemen, I want to turn to you two. Samir, I'll give the floor to you first here. Who is your baddest man from this game for the Chicago Bears?
There was a couple candidates here, but I don't think anybody had a truly baddest man. I mean, Caleb, second half Caleb, baddest man. First half Caleb could have been nicest man, right? So it's hard to kind of balance those out. I'm going to go with Luther Burden, though. I think he takes over wide receiver 1 before the end of the year. Dude can do it all, man. He gets open. His yak ability is great. And what I like the most about him is, he's a dog. He's like CJ Gardner-Johnson on offense. He's just he's going to be that guy that just gets in your face. He's going to own it. He's not going to shy away from contact, the pressure of the moment. I feel like I'm going to give it to, I think Luther stepped up, when they needed him to and made some plays. I know he, that first pass of the game, it looked like he didn't get his head around quick enough, but I think after that, he really found Caleb. And I'm hoping that him and Caleb develop a little bit more rapport on that scramble drill, because Caleb still hasn't found his guy on the scramble drill yet. It's been kind of choppy and a lot of throws out of bounds, but I'm hoping that Luther can be that guy. So I'm going to go with Luther.
I think that's a great option. Sonny?
Yeah, Luther was my number 1 option. I think there was a lot of expectations with Luther, with Rome being out. This could be the Luther breakout game. And I think, especially when you consider the circumstances, the weather, Luther did everything you could ask him for. So I think he's, to me, the clear number 1 guy as well. But for me, I want to give it to one of the running backs again. And for me, I'll lean with Kyle Monangai today. Just continues to be a battering ram, week after week.
Yeah.
That one play, where he was stuffed at the line, literally knocked back the linebacker and just came back around. It's stuff like that which defenders see on tape, and they got a job to do. They got to tackle that guy. But when they're scouting the Bears and they see Monangai do stuff like that, and then they see Monangai running at them on Sunday, that play, crosses their mind for a split second. And so I want to give Kyle all the love at this point, just, continuing to be essentially the identity of this Bears offense, which is just We're going to run it down your throat, and we're going to make you hurt trying to tackle us.
Yeah, I think both of those are great options. Luther, I think despite this maybe not being the Luther Burden quote unquote breakout game, I think this was still a great effort from Luther Burden. Like,
For sure.
I still think it was a great game. I don't think anybody's upset with what number 10 did on the field today. So I think it's a great option as well. I also agree with Kyle Mononga. Sonny, I have to give a shout out to you here because I don't know if I've told this story on the Bears on Tap airwaves yet. I may have. It might have kind of been glossed over at points since the draft occurred, but we started teeing up the building the board project for this past draft. And as always, I love scouting running backs. It's fun because I can usually figure out what the O-line's trying to do. And I know enough about the running back position to know where they should be going and what their responsibility is. And I was like, I got to start watching somebody, I had the 2 Ohio State running backs, of course, on my short list. And we did a Bears on Tap. And Sonny, you were like, hey, maybe a great place to start is that kid from Rutgers, Kyle Mononga, because he torched Illinois. And obviously you do Locked On Illini. So kind of a shout out to you, man. I watched a lot of Mononga film. I liked him. I comped him to kind of a similar player to a little bit to David Montgomery kind of coming out. Obviously, I called him a poor man's version because he's not as big and he's not as shifty, but kind of the same vibe in terms of how he runs. And he ended up being a Bear. And it was just like, that's kind of a fun one that it really came full circle. So a shout out to you, sir, on your baddest man pick. I'm glad you guys gave the love on the offensive side because despite the, I think the love lost for the defense today and their effort as a unit, Grady Jarrett is playing some of his best football right now. And he's starting to make a huge difference on that interior defensive line. And that's really encouraging because they need that. And I think one of the more impressive things that I noticed at one point, now, again, I don't know for sure, but based on context clues, I'm going to make an assumption. When the Bears had backed up the Packers into it was a 3rd and long, and they, just needed to keep it in front of them to force the punt, which they did successfully. There, you can see it on the play. Grady Jarrett is in his stance. Something gets called at the line. He looks at Dravon Dexter and goes, "You bail." He only literally tells him, "You bail." And sure as shit, he bails. And Jaden Reed is right there making the catch. That's where the play was going. That's the type of shit that Grady Jarrett brings to this team that Dennis Allen values, that Ryan Poles values, that Ben Johnson values. And now that he's starting to play physically at his best level, because I think he's fully healthy and, he's an older player. Sometimes it takes those guys a little, you got to get the joints a little WD-40'd up before the season comes to an end. But I think his intellectual properties that he brings to that defensive front are so important. I thought he had a really good day today. Even Owen Kreutz mentioned it throughout the course of the game, said that Grady Jarrett's really starting to flash. And I think that's going to be really important for this Bears team if this defense is going to have better games moving forward. So I got to give some love to the old savvy vet Grady Jarrett, because I thought I know the defense as a whole maybe didn't have a great day. I thought Grady Jarrett, though, made some really big impact plays at times for the Chicago Bears. So he is.
I got a quick question before we move forward. Do you guys think that Tremaine Edmonds, how much did the Bears miss Edmonds today?
A lot. I think they miss him a ton. And especially just because of the athleticism he brings. Dennis Allen's defense is very intriguing. And Q and I had a blast really diving into the nuts and bolts of it over the summer when we were itching and looking for something to do to talk about the Bears. Dennis Allen does weird shit. Like, it's very Brian Flores-esque in a lot of properties, right? He likes to bring the kind of that 7-up look, and he'll bail guys back. He asks a lot, though, in coverage from his linebackers. And you got to think about the guys he had in New Orleans. Werner has been down there for a long time, Pete Werner, who's a very athletic, linebacker. And then Demario Davis is one of the best linebackers in the game. He values guys that can drop in coverage, that can run with guys. And when you got just an athletic freak like Tremaine Edmonds, who's so long and can take away parts of the field, he can take away your hook lanes. He can take away, some of the stuff immediately over the middle. He's fast enough to keep up. with tight ends and even some of these slot receivers on short routes. They really do miss him right now. And I think, again, he got paid a lot of money in this defense. I think he's truly worth it because of everything that he can do. They're sorely, you can see it when their linebacking core is at full strength. This team hums, especially because then the DBs aren't asked to do as much, especially in the run game.
Yeah.
I think right now they're really starting to miss him. Sonny, is anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I think you pretty much nailed it. But you saw how many missed tackles, how many times we put hands on Green Bay Packers players and didn't bring them down. You want your ace guys there, and I think they did miss him in that aspect.
That 3rd and 1 with Jacobs, where they had him like 4 yards back. That's where you need Tremaine Edmonds.
That's a play that definitely hurts. Ed Mandel here actually bringing up a great point too. Quentin and I actually talked about this a little bit. It was completely just him and I texting back and forth on Wednesday. It was the day after the preview show that we did, Samir. And let me get to Ed's comment and tell the story. The fact we're in all these games with 0 pass rush is how great Dennis Allen is. Imagine if he actually had an average pass rush to work with. This offseason, the Bears are going to do something to address that pass rush because he needs his Cameron Jordan. Because they miss that guy that he can move around the line and scheme up pressure for. Because that's what he did in New Orleans all the time with Cameron Jordan. There's a reason Cameron Jordan's played for so long and had 8 to 12 sacks almost every year of his career. Because Dennis Allen schemes it up for him. And I really do believe that they're missing that guy. I think that makes Montez Sweat more effective, though. If they get that guy opposite, you can move Sweat around a lot more and generate some pressure for him. I mean, hell, they would scheme up pressure for Brian Brees in New Orleans. Like, if you have an elite pass rusher opposite of Montez Sweat, that's, I think, going to really take the defense to another level in 2026. We were having this conversation. I literally told Q, I was like, I kind of want to enjoy 25 before I start worrying about 26. It's 100% something that I think they are looking at this team right now and saying, if there's one thing that we absolutely have to do, it's that. They have to address getting a legitimate pass rush option. You're seeing, when, to Dorsey's point here, so true, no pass rush at all on Jordan Love, and he had all day to pass. And of course, when he does that, Samir, we talked about the numbers for Jordan Love in the preview show and how good he is against the blitz. If you can't get home with the blitz, he's going to make you pay. And
done.
They did that today for the Bears. So, well, I guess we got to watch the cute puppy now because we got to get.
No, we got to do bad. We got to do baddest man on Green Bay.
Oh, no, I don't want to talk.
If we want to, we don't have to.
I don't want to talk about Green Bay. I have nothing nice to say about that organization. And in fact, I'm surprised I haven't shit talked our local in-house Packers fan yet about this game, but I probably will at some point in the next few days. I mean, yeah. Let's get to it.
The nicest man.
The puppy always makes my day feel better. Sonny, who's your nicest man?
I mean, this is like bad timing because of what we just talked about over the last 5 minutes and how it's not necessarily his fault because his guys aren't on this team yet. But, for me, it was just Dennis Allen. Like the fact that you kept blitzing and you just couldn't get home to Jordan Love, and Jordan Love continued to just I love the way you put it, Samir, the Jordan fadeaway throw that Jordan does over and over again. It's tough because he doesn't have the guy who can get to Jordan Love quite yet. But I probably would have made some sort of adjustment. The zone defense in the bad defensive backfield was just eaten up over and over again by the Packers. It was just a bad game, I think, by Dennis.
Totally fair. Samir?
This might not be fair, but I'm going to go with the nickels, our nickel cornerbacks. Kyler Gordon, what are we doing, man? What are we doing? Like, missing most of the season. Somehow you tweak yourself in the pregame warmups, like 10 minutes before the game's going to start. You just sign an extension. Like, we can't, I don't know. I mean, that's not his fault. I get that, but it's pretty frustrating. And then, for as good as CJ has been this season, this was one of his tougher games. I thought, yeah, he had the pick early. Love threw it right at him. I mean, it was a good catch, but it was just that, right? It hit him in the chest. But other than that, man, like, he blitzed several times, wasn't really very effective at all. He led the team in tackles, which is not great when your cornerback leads your team in tackles. That means the receivers in front of him are catching the ball a lot. So I know you said he was helpful in the run game, which is fine. I don't know. It just felt like the nickel group kind of needed better from them.
It definitely underwhelmed over the course of the day. And really, if you look where most of their big plays came from for the Packers, it was usually lined up against their nickel guys.
Yeah.
Really, I think the only exception to that is the Melton touchdown, because it split the cover 2. And I don't know if they were running true cover 2, but if they were, the backside cover 2 defender was not there. And that's what obviously resulted in the touchdown. Gentlemen, I'm actually... it's hard to say this right now because the all 22 won't be available till tomorrow to where I can actually see everything. But my early nominee for nicest man is Jonah Jackson. He had a rough game today. Absolutely rough game. It felt like every time it was a passing down and the Bears were dropping back, somebody was coming free. And if they were coming from the interior, more often than not, they were coming from Jonah Jackson's side. And it's tough. And again, I think the Packers did a brilliant job of scheming upward. Micah Parsons had a lot of one-on-one opportunities against Jonah Jackson and utilized his speed against a guy who is not historically good against speed. That is probably Jonah Jackson's biggest and glaring weakness in his game. But as much as I love to stroke their egos and talk nice about the offensive line on our review shows, I will be honest and forward when they have bad days. And today was one of those such days for Jonah Jackson. So he is my nicest man for the day. Gentlemen, we'll get to our final segment right now.
Keys to victory.
I'm thankful that Quentin is organized and neat and has these written down, because I was trying to recall off the top of my head from Tuesday's show and it wasn't going very well, but I have them here. Q consolidated all of our points that we discussed on our preview show into 4 major points, so we'll talk through those right now. And the first one was stay out of predictable passing downs. Gentlemen, I don't know, especially in the first half at least, the Bears struggled mightily in this category and could not get anything going.
Yeah, this is tough because, the first half is skewing so many of the results, ultimately of all the stats of this game. In the second half, I think they did a lot better of a job because they went to the running game. And, when they're pounding the rock, then Kyle and, Swift were getting 4 or 5 yards at a time. And so it's one of those where I don't know if they executed or not. They did in the second half. They didn't so much in the first half. So it's like a half passing grade. I give them a B-.
Totally fair. Samir, anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, they were 1 out of 7 on third downs in the first half. And they were, like Sonny said, an obvious passing downs on those third downs. It felt like they did a lot more first down, second down, first downs in the second half, where they were getting those chunk run plays. And even the ones where they didn't pick it up on second down, it was 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and they would pick it up, right? And so I think it did improve, like Sonny said, as the game went on. But it was a tale of 2 halves, and they just were really bad in the first half on it.
It really was. And I think that's going to be a theme that we continue to revisit here. So just bear with me here on the keys to victory, because I agree. I think, again, it was first half penalties, just drop passes, predictable 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, 3rd and more than that, which I promise you right now, there's not a lot of things in the playbook for more than 12 yards. So there was a lot of, it was bad in the first, but then in the second half, they took care of it and we looked a lot better. And I think that'll be a continuing trend here, because the second key to victory was embrace bully ball. They played a little more bully ball in the second half. I don't know if it was truly the bully ball that any of us were hoping for, but they played a little bit better in the second half with bully ball. In the first half, I believe they were bully balled by the Packers defense and even by the Packers offense. I mean, it really felt like a one-sided affair in those first 30 minutes. Samir, do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. The Packers just looked like the more dominating. I mean, Parsons had a tremendous first half. The stat sheet, doesn't show because Caleb is still kind of a wizard back there, but he did take some licks, and Parsons was exploiting our poor Mr. Jackson. As you pointed out, they were just getting dominated.
Indeed, they were. Sonny, anything else you want to add?
No, just thinking of Parsons, like I don't know if any players had as much impact on a game and shown up less in a box score than Parsons today, because he was all over the field. But when I'm looking at that box score, 0 sacks, it's like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree. I think, again, to that point, man, the greased up death guy was in full effect today with Caleb Williams. There was a couple of them where I was just like, he should not have gotten out of that. I don't know how he did it. The one where he jumped over his lineman and scrambles to pick up
he had Tom Brady smitten on some of those.
Yeah. Well, because Tom Brady could never. That was never Tom Brady's game.
No.
Tom Brady had the I call it the Aaron Rodgers pocket maneuvering, where it was step up and step out, and that's all he knew how to do. Not run around in 3 circles, jump over one of your own players, shed off a DB's hands, even though he's like right in your face, and then deliver an absolute bullet down the sideline to, the throw to Komet at that one point gave me visions of the throw to DeAndre Swift last year down the sideline against the Vikings at Soldier Field. The ball to Burden was a great one as well. The ball to Duvernay was another great one. These were all, Caleb rolling out to his right, either designed or him just scrambling for his life, because that's just what Caleb Williams does. He's a literal Houdini at the quarterback position, and it's genuinely impressive. The third key to victory, gentlemen, was attack Green Bay's defensive aggressiveness. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but they didn't do it well in the first half. Much better in the second half.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. In the first half, I felt like they were too timid, too cute. And then in the second half, you saw that throw to Komet, as you mentioned. Caleb really played to the middle of the field, and it was working. I think he had 150 yards almost in that second half in passing yards alone himself. And it just makes you wonder, what if it just gotten rolling even halfway through that second quarter, how different the final result of this game could have looked.
Yeah, they ran a lot more PA boots, I think, in that second half. Let Caleb get out in space, especially to his right, where he's a lot more comfortable. They ran some that nifty shovel pass or underhand pass to Swift to kind of capitalize on some of that aggression from the Green Bay pass rushers. So, I mean, like you guys have been saying, Ben Johnson did make some pretty good tweaks in the second half, which gives me so much confidence that we don't have a coach that's just gonna coaching staff that's just gonna run the same crap out there because this is our game plan. We're gonna try and out execute you. It's no, sometimes you need to change your strategy, and the staff has shown the ability to do that. So I think they did. I think they sort of did that.
You mean you didn't want to see a repetition of Eberflus and Getsy and all of that nonsense again, where
more wide receiver screens? Yeah,
it's our way or nothing. I'll tell you what, that is truly the differentiator of a good coach. And there's a lot of really good coaches. The coaches that struggle to stick around long are the coaches with an ego. And play calling is, in a lot of ways, egotistical, right? Because it's your offense and it's going to work. You just have to execute it. It's going to work. Mm-hmm. No, sometimes, like you said, Samir, you do have to change up the strategy. And being able to swallow your pride and say, this didn't work, and change it and make an effective adjustment, that's what makes great coaches. And I think we continue to see that out of Ben Johnson, and that's why that's so important. So, again, a tale of two halves really was what it was for this Bears offense. And I think they did a much better job in the second half. The final one, stay disciplined on the back end. The Bears secondary needed to stay disciplined. I personally don't believe they did very well, because I think of the Melton long touchdown. I think of the Watson touchdown. And frankly, those two plays alone make me feel that this was not exactly a passing grade per se. And Samir, I believe this was your key from Tuesday's show. Am I mistaken in that assessment?
Sort of. So my key was actually that we need to generate pressure with the front four, because Love is excellent against the blitz. And so that did not come to fruition, obviously. what did I write here? He has 131 passer rating in his last 4 games against the blitz. And then all 3 of his touchdown passes today happened when they blitzed. He was 9 of 12 for 171 yards and 3 touchdowns when he faced extra rushers. So I think the Bears get an F for that particular key to victory, unfortunately.
I support that. Sonny,
Yeah, it's hard to argue any of that. I think didn't get the job done there, and that's why ultimately I think you lost the game today.
Well said. Well said indeed. Gentlemen, I'll tell you what. It's amazing how when you jump on the microphone after a Bears game and they win, and there's so much more to say sometimes. And sometimes after a loss, it's a raw reaction. You settle on it. And then that's, I think, where the all 22 comes into such play, and you can really assess what happened in this game. Sorry, I'm incredibly distracted. There's a big ass spider crawling on my wall right now over here. All of a sudden I'm looking up. I was like, what is moving on my
You're
wall?
having a day, Ron. You're having a day.
I am having a day. Yeah, there's it's been an interesting weekend, let's say the least. The Packers beat the Bears today was not the only bad thing that happened in my household. Let's just put it that way. But just like how I attack though all the problems going on in my home, I attack how the Bears and the Packers play. You have a chance. It could always be worse. You got a chance to correct it in 2 weeks when these two teams play again at Soldier Field. And in between, you've got a really bad Cleveland Browns team coming to your own building. Then you need to take care of business. Make it a get-right game.
I mean, these Packers lost to those Browns. So it's one of those things where you have to keep that into perspective as well. And, just to, kind of piggyback what you're saying, Ron, coming into last Friday, the Bears, despite their record, weren't given a lot of respect when it comes to the NFL and other fan bases and whatnot. And then they put on a shellacking in Philadelphia to the defending champions, which earned them some respect. But there was always that thought that could that have been a fluke game? Was Philly distracted? It's Black Friday, et cetera, et cetera. I think today, if nothing else, kind of cemented that the Chicago Bears are a good football team. Going into Green Bay, a team that was 8-3-1 themselves, no one's going to argue that they aren't a good football team. You went into Lambeau, one of the toughest places to play in the NFL and some of the harshest conditions to play in the NFL. And you were one play away from possibly coming out of that game with a victory. If nothing else, it's one of those where we had a heartbreaking loss against the Baltimore Ravens. Right. And a lot of us were like, that was hard to swallow. And then how does Ben Johnson bounce back? How does this Bears team bounce back? Well, they bounced back with, I believe, 5 or 6 straight victories after that game. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing next Sunday. Yes, this Browns team's not very good, but as I said, that Browns team beat this Packers team. I want to see Ben Johnson. I want to see this Chicago Bears team return home. I want to see a lot of energy. And I just want to see a good, solid game plan combined with execution, because now this is my expectation for this coaching staff. Ben Johnson has won me over. He's proven it over all season long, bouncing back after bad losses. The season's not over yet. I know, we fell, I think, 6 spots in the standings just by that one loss, which is incredible. But, we have some winnable games ahead. And now my expectation is we can win them. Well said.
Samir, any other final thoughts that you would like to?
That was great. That was great, Sonny. Totally with you. This stinks. But like I said, probably the hardest game left on the Bears schedule. They have plenty of chances they control their own destiny, guys. I mean, if they win out, they're going to be, top of the division. And so it's in their hands, and there's no reason to hang your head down. They hung with 2 of the best teams. They beat one of the best teams, right? 2 of the top teams in the NFC. They proved that they belong. Let's go get back on track next week.
Absolutely. MJ50 says here, he corrected, so I will read it with the correction. Bears hung with a Packers team that doesn't have a lot of draft capital the next 2 years. Yeah, they gave up a lot to go get Micah Parsons. That's a team that's trying to win now, and the Bears are arguably a team that's a little ahead of schedule. Sonny, I think you put it perfectly. This Bears team is still a good football team, and you saw that today. Yes. Did they have a rough first half? Absolutely. Did they correct it in the second half? Yes, they did. right? This isn't a Bears team of old where they come out flat in the second half and get embarrassed. It wasn't like that. It was a very, very different football game. They had a chance, came down to the wire, and it just didn't work out. Shit happens. I know it stings a little bit more because it's Green Bay. But again, you got another chance in 2 weeks. And that's the beauty of these backloaded division schedules that the NFL has started to go to now, is when it matters most and where where you kind of stand in the playoff picture, we'll call it, of the NFL. These games have a lot more meaning now. And especially, I mean, every team the Bears play outside of the Browns is a playoff team.
Yep.
Or a potential playoff team. But to your point, Samir, they still feel winnable. They control their own destiny. And that's when you can control your own destiny, that is the key. You never want to have to rely on other things to happen to make it to the postseason. If you can just handle your own business, at the end of the day, that is what's best. As always, encouraging everybody to follow on at Bears on Tap on the socials. Be sure to follow along with all of us. You can see our handles here in our nameplates. And of course, head over to OnTap Sportsnet on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit that little bell button. You'll know when all of our great shows go live, including us here at Bears on Tap. We will see everybody on Tuesday for the preview of the Browns game. I'm excited. I'll be in attendance for that Browns game. That's my first Bears game of the season. So I'm super fired up to be at Soldier Field. Be in the Burnham Harbor lot, I believe, getting some steaks going at like 8:30 in the morning and probably cracking open a cold one as well. It's going to be absolutely electric. I can't wait. But gentlemen, until then, what do you guys say? Bear down.
Bear down.
Bear down.